I am going to present PromevenTertiaire, which is the new French protocol for inspection of ventilation systems in non-residential buildings. And as an introduction, a bit of context. In France, there is, for now, no mandatory protocol or regulation specifically requiring the inspection and the measurement of ventilation systems in non-residential buildings. Unlike the residential sector, where a protocol for reception of ventilation systems applies, in new buildings, since the environmental regulation 2020, and unlike the residential sector, the non-residential sector doesn't have yet any legal obligation for such inspections. So the protocol PromevenTertiaire I am going to talk about is a voluntary initiative. It has been developed to provide professionals with a structured and reliable framework for assessing the performance and compliance of ventilation systems in office buildings, in schools, and other non-residential buildings such as commercial spaces. This reference protocol in France was created in response to recurring malfunctions that impacts both energy consumption and indoor air quality, affecting occupants' health. So the project started in 2018, and it involved multiple partners. It was coordinated by CETIAT and received the support from the French Agency for Ecological Transition, ADEME, and the French Ministry for the Ecological Transition. So it received public fundings. The main objectives are to improve reliability and quality of mechanical ventilation system controls by harmonizing checking and measurement methods. And another objective is to provide practical tools for professionals and guidelines. So the scope of application is both new and existing non-residential buildings. And the scope covers the most common mechanical ventilation systems such as extract or supply mechanical ventilation, balance mechanical ventilation, and mechanical ventilation systems with air treatment. Some of the key tasks of the projects are, of course, on-site campaigns, on-site measurement campaigns, and also laboratory tests. The on-site measurement campaigns occurred in 3 buildings, schools and offices, to test protocol applications robustness. And there was different measuring teams with various measuring instruments in order to see which were the best in some situations, in some different situations. And the laboratory tests were used to search, to study more calibration and uncertainties evaluation. Another task which was really important was to assess the impact of observed dysfunctions. And the dysfunctions that are commonly observed in non-residential buildings are poor ductwork airtightness, dirty components, incorrect fan settings, duct insulation faults, and unsuitable air handling unit operating hours. So the final result of the project was a protocol, PromevenTertiaire, and technical appendices, and technical reports, and also guides on common faults and their impact. On health, on energy consumption, and financial impacts. So you can find all the results on the official website, PromevenTertiaire.fr. As for the methodology of the protocol, you will see the protocol is structured in several key steps. First of all, with the owner, it should be decided the scope, the checks and measurements to perform. As there is no regulation, it is all done with the owner. And then the first step is the pre-check, which consists in a document analysis. It consists to gather all available documentation with design parameters or specifications, system characteristics, operational modes, and then a sampling can be done with all this information. A thing that has been really important with feedback is that in the pre-check, it is also important to make a first visit on site because this first visit can enable to collect, to gather more documents important to carry on the checks. And then there is output data from pre-check. And then the next step is on-site checks and measurements, which includes functional checks. Functional checks are essentially visual inspections and non-measure checks. Then there are functional measurements at ventilation air handling units and at air terminal devices or in terminal ducts. So the visual inspection includes, for instance, cleanliness and correct operation of air terminal devices, proper positioning of air inlets, outlets to avoid short-circuiting airflow, or quality of duct connections on visible parts only, because these checks are non-destructive. And it is important to mention that. The functional measurement can be global and or local, and global at air ventilation air units with airflow rates measurements, pressures, fan power measurements, and at air terminal devices or in terminal ducts, airflow rates and pressures can be measured. There are also spatial measurements, which are ductwork airtightness, as for residential inspection, and fan speed rotation, which is useful in order to avoid fan overload. All measurements and checks are compared to design specifications or regulatory requirements. And at the end, a report is produced, including the scope of the inspection, the sample of systems and components checked and measured, and the results obtained at each step of the inspection. I won't detail the whole protocol, but here is an overview of the questions that find their answer in PromevenTertiaire. So which parameter should be measured? Is it airflow rate, pressure, air velocity, power? Which instruments can be used? It is important to use the appropriate measuring instrument. For instance, flow meter, anemometer, and PromevenTertiaire gives some recommendations from on-site and laboratory campaign to indicate which is the more appropriate following the various situations. Where do the measurement can be done? Is it at the air terminal devices or in the duct upstream of the terminal device? And how? which are the operating conditions of the installation, and what are the methods based on standards or good practices. So the applications of the protocol are various, and here are some examples of the current applications. For instance, in certification programs or labels, such as Effinergy labels, the protocol PromevenTertiaire is mentioned, and the checks should mention the methodology of PromevenTertiaire if the building wants to get the label. And it is also used for legal expertise, and mainly used for voluntary initiative from project owners and managers. And we talked previously about TightVent in 2000. Yes, it was used for self-checking for installers, but now PromevenTertiaire comes in replacement of these previous checking procedures, and it was inspired by TightVent, but it is more complete today, and it is the national reference now. There are complementary projects to go further in reliability of methods. A study on the measurement methods described in the standard, the EN 16211 standard, at air intake or air exhaust grill using an anemometer. This study was carried out by a PromevenTertiaire team, and there was also an updated guide to airflow measurements by CETIAT, and yeah, you have the link if you are interested to see what are the recommendations. And now the next step maybe it would be to use PromevenTertiaire in a future French regulation, potentially, but it needs further steps before consideration this possible. So we need to define how to analyze results of an inspection with respect to the requirement set. As for functional checks and functional measurements. For functional checks, there is regulatory enforcement verification points, checkpoint for the application of good practices, and acceptable tolerance in order to conclude with the check. And you see the same questions that needs to be answered in order to go further. Reference values, acceptable tolerance, and uncertainty for airflow. And another point is the person who will be qualified to do this. So there is questions to demand qualification or skills of operators. But work is in progress. Thank you for your attention.